Well, g'day everyone. It's the Two Ordinary Cops. We're back. And Damo, how are you, mate?
Mate, I'm in Darwin. I'm great. Yeah, we're still here. We're going well. It's we've been here for a while now, and we're having a great time. It's been really good to catch up, and we're in our interview stage, and we've got someone pretty special today, mate.
We do, mate, and I'll let you do the introduction. Although both of us, otherwise, we might fight over it.
Yeah, we do.
We both have a massive respect for this lady.
Yeah. So it's we have Commander Kylie Anderson on deck with us today from Katherine. How are you, Kylie?
Yeah, really good. Thanks for inviting me on. It's a special treat to have been asked to come and sit with you two and tell some yarns and reminisce about the good old days.
Is it a treat or punishment? We're not quite sure.
Well, I'm trying to put a positive spin on it, so I'm rolling with treat for now. We'll see how this goes over the next however long it takes.
Yeah, no, fair enough. Well, look, thanks very much for coming on. It's really good that we can get someone on. Obviously, you're the commander for Katherine Northern, I believe. So can you just give us what's your full title now? I just don't know what the commands are called anymore.
Yeah, so it's Commander Northern. So I look after Northern Command, which I'm assuming a lot of people aren't familiar with the territory, but Daly Waters Pub, which is an iconic pub along the Stewart Highway, about 600 kilometres south of Darwin. That's my southern boundary. And then my patch goes border to border, Queensland to Western Australia, all the way up to the Northern Territory coast, so up through Arnhem Land and into those coastal communities up the top there.
Yeah, so to put that into European context, it's about, so you're basically in charge of France, Germany and Spain.
Without all the politics. Well, that's probably not entirely true, but yeah, that landmass, absolutely. About 500,000 square kilometres and about 21 police stations within that patch.
Yeah, so one hell of a thing. So, Kylie, you've been in the police a long time now. Like what are you, 24 years in?
Yeah, 24 years. 24. Yeah, June, just gone.
Yeah. So, can you give us a rundown of your roles, what you've done through the years?
Yeah, absolutely. I was pretty lucky. I graduated out of recruit training and landed in Katherine as my first posting, which, as I think you two both did. And absolutely loved it. I had really good access to senior partners, really experienced, good on-road cops. So, set you up in your career really early to learn those really important street skills of being, when I say good cop, probably learning how to talk to people, knowing when to use discretion, knowing when to go in hard. When I say hard, use force early to minimise what was going to obviously escalate if you didn't. From Katherine, I went down to Alice Springs, did a bit of time down there in general duties. And then early on in my career, was lucky enough to be encouraged by a really good mentor to head out remote. So I ended up at Papunya for about 3 years under the mentorship of an old retired sergeant now, Bob Allen, who was another really good cop and knew his business, particularly remote policing wise. So I did 3 years out there, absolutely loved it. It was a great way to police. You get to know all your goodies, all your baddies. You become an integral part of the community, which is a really nice way to police. From there, I moved back up north. So I got the officer in charge job at Adelaide River, little sleepy hollow town about 100k south of Darwin. And I did that for 12 months before I made that, I won't say fatal error, but hooked up with another police officer and ended up getting married and moving to Darwin to make the circumstances of the relationship work up there. So I was in Darwin for a little while before back to Katherine a second time, then back up to Darwin, then down to Tennant Creek for 3 years. And I only picked that because I really wanted to be able to say I'd worked in Darwin, Katherine, Tennant and Alice, the big four. That's the only reason I went to Tennant. Yep. Barbie's giving a thumbs up. Absolutely. And I absolutely loved it there. It was one of my most favourite postings of all time there. Just the community were awesome. It was a good time in my life to be down there and met a whole heap of great friends who I keep to this day. They'll be best mates for life sort of thing. And then back to Darwin again for a short stint before I've ended up where I am now on promotion. Back to Katherine for the third time. There must be something there that keeps me coming back. So I got promoted to the Commander Northern job and that's where I am now.
Yeah, so you've covered the whole territory. You've gone top to bottom as well. You've got that breadth of experience where you've been out in those remote areas and seen what can go on. And I think that's reassuring for troops when they've got bosses who've been there, done that, and can stay up with it. So we obviously, you've heard the podcast. We go through things. We talk about good jobs, bad jobs, which everyone's had. We've all had horrendous jobs. We've all had really funny jobs. Can you think of anything memorable through your career that you're willing to share, Commander? I might add.
I've got nothing to hide, Mr. Barb. I say that now. I'll start thinking of things and go, oh, that's probably not appropriate. Let's not go there. Look, I've absolutely loved this job. I still do. It's the greatest job in the world. The beauty of it is the variety of it. So when you're a junior police officer sitting in a general duties van, you kit up and you have absolutely no idea what's coming shift after shift, and that is the joy of the job. Is no 2 days are the same. Good jobs. There's probably 1,000 good jobs, and they're more so good times with the crew across those various postings, where you've been able to have a laugh, where you've got the job done. I can't think of anything that comes to mind. I know one of the really bad jobs was that was at Papunya, and we had a report of a young girl that had been assaulted over a 24-hour period by her stepfather. And we got called to that, and the injuries were horrific. She was about 9 years old. The injuries on her were horrific, but the bottom line to that was that we responded with the help of the community, because the offender had done a runner in the middle of the night. They actually apprehended the offender and brought him to us so that we could deal with him and take him into custody and get him sorted so that that young girl was safe. And I think that's a really memorable job, because the advice from the sergeant, who was Bob Allen at the time, was we need to do everything right here. So, those terrible jobs where people are picking on innocent children, it takes all of your restraint not to, you really want to hurt them. You want to make them feel the pain that they've inflicted on these poor little kids. But he said, we need to do everything right by the book here, because we don't want to lose this case in a court of law, sort of thing. So let's do everything we need to make sure that he's put before a court and convicted and sentenced to a long term of imprisonment, which happened. So really good advice at that time. But on the whole, really good fun, lots of good positive jobs, and lots and lots of laughs along the way, which is really what brings the fun in the job and why I absolutely love it so much.
Yeah, no, definitely. And I think that was why we always got along really well, because it was always that humour. And what I loved about it is we certainly had it. You've got it, and all of our friends sort of had it. When it was time to switch on, it was time to switch on, and you'd always do your job 100%. Be able to back your mates up, be fair to everybody, do that. But the people I really liked were the ones who could flip that off when there wasn't the requirement, when it's time to just relax, let your hair down and have a good laugh. And to me, that was a survival mechanism in the job. It was so important that you do this job, you're professional, you get into it, and you do it as long and hard as you have to do it. But when it's time to let your hair down, let your hair down. And that was always the thing. I remember you were the OIC at Adelaide River, and you turned up to our Christmas parties every year, and it was always a belly laugh. Every single time was just funny. I impersonated my detective sergeant one day. He had a case of alopecia, and I dyed my hair black and cut chunks out of my hair just to impersonate him, which was fairly insensitive, but he had thick skin, so it was all right. He could handle it. But
I was sitting on the bus when we picked you up. I think you were the first pickup. Shorty Watkinson was driving, and you got on the bus, and I laughed for the entire loop that we did picking up cops to go to the Christmas party. It was the best fancy dress outfit I've ever seen, and it remains so to this day.
Dress as your heroes. It was dress as your superheroes.
Yeah,
that was so I went, all right, I see an opportunity.
I've still got photos of you.
Yeah. Oh.
Yeah, and you're right. You know when you need to be serious, and this job can be really serious at times. But then you also know when you can let your hair down and have a laugh, and that is just a necessity of this job. It's that hot debrief, inappropriate humour, which I know you've spoken about on previous episodes, and just having a laugh to get that really high impact emotional stuff off your chest really quickly, so that you can settle and move on to the next thing, whatever that is.
Yeah, and we've said it before in this job. A lot of people in society. I'm not in the police anymore. I live with a lot of people. Live in an area where no one has policing experience or policing their families or anything like that. People forget that police are human, and if you want these humans to do this job, which is outside the normal for any length of time, they need to be able to have a laugh. And there's coping mechanisms in there, being humour and all the rest of it, and it's just vitally important to me. I think the unique part as well. We covered off a little bit on women in policing. In a previous episode, and we've got quite a bit of interest from girls joining up and things like that. So talk about to tell it for us to get a bit more information on women in policing. But we made a really important point. We're not girls, Kylie.
No.
We're not girls.
Well, shut the front gate. Who knew?
Yeah. So do you want to just expand a little bit on your experience, not just in policing, but also as a woman in policing and joining in the year 2000 and go through and sort of explain your experience as a woman in policing?
Yeah, absolutely. So on our squad, I think we started with 36, and 8 or 10 of those were women. So it was probably standard at the time. A third of the squad were female. I never have had an issue being a woman in this job. I know that other people have had some terrible times of it with, sexual assault and harassment and things like that. I don't have any personal experience on that, and I just found that if you're a good cop, then you are accepted into the team, and everyone just got on with it. Being female, male, gay, straight, it wasn't an issue, and it still isn't to this day for me. You do get tested a bit. When I got to Papunya, I remember we picked up the clinic manager at one of the outstations, Mount Liebig, and myself, the sergeant, and the clinic manager, who happened to be male, went to Glen Helen Resort for lunch, just for something to do on the weekend, and did a traffic patrol. And as we're coming out of the resort, we had a flat tyre. So the boss, who I'd just started working for, was like, "Oh, well, it's your turn to change the tyre." And the two boys were standing there just chewing the fat while I was getting on with it and changing the tyre out on the car. And a car full of old tourists happened to be coming down Namatjira Drive, and they pulled up to see what was going on. And the old duck in the passenger seat was quite horrified that the girl was changing the tyre on the police car while the two blokes just stood there watching her. And my sergeant turned to him completely deadpan and said, "The Northern Territory Police is an equal opportunity employer, and this is what that shit looks like in real life." And
Yeah.
to that, I all laughed, the boys laughed, and these old people we never saw again just drove off into the sunset.
Yeah.
I only imagine the stories they were telling of their trip. But so you got a few tests like that where people test you to make sure you're up to the challenge of, the rigours of policing. But I assume I passed with flying colours, because we got on like a house on fire after that and had a good time with that posting.
You make a good point, though. I heard a really good call from one of the girls who was a sergeant in Catherine at the time, and she'd just been in a fight by herself at the BP service station, and we turned up to help out. And lots of people are coming out and they're trying to help her out, and she was the one who coined it. And I've heard it now said in sexist ways, all the rest of it. But it was, "Oh, well, you know how it is, boys. Equal rights, equal lefts." So it was. And at this stage, she had bruises on her face and all the rest of it. Her knuckles were a bit dusted up, and she had dirt all over her, but she'd done a bloody good job. So
there was some challenges in the job. We used to laugh. Remember years ago, we used to wear the khaki coveralls. They were like just a single piece, sort of button up the front, long sleeve, so overalls. And in the desert down in sort of Papunya and Namu area, you used to get, into the minuses in the middle of winter, and we would meet up with the Damu members, and we'd have a barbecue in the middle of nowhere. But when you're sitting around and you've had a few drinks and then you have to go to the loo, obviously for the boys, that was pretty easy. But for a girl wearing those coveralls, you pretty much had to strip off with nothing to just go to the toilet. And I remember thinking, pretty comfortable being a female, but that was the one time I thought, geez, you blokes have got a distinct advantage with all the do these things. So, yeah, that one time. And it was freezing cold. So, yeah, it was very unpleasant.
Yeah, there's nothing like the desert chill. Yeah. So, Kylie, obviously now you're in a position where you're now is commander not quite executive, is it? It's considered it's basically director level.
Yeah, it's it's funny. So when they talk about senior executive, that's usually referenced as assistant commissioner up. So we've got commissioner, deputy commissioner, and assistant commissioner. We sort of sit in that sort of grey area above superintendent. So we're senior commission officers, but we're probably not deemed that rank to be that upper echelon of police management.
Yeah. So obviously that gives a hell of a lot of authority, but a hell of a lot of responsibility in that area at the Northern Command. So, how have you found that? How are you finding Northern Commander and your role as the commander of the area?
Yeah, it's a big job. It's a big patch, and it's the variances in particularly culture across that footprint. So you're down, you're across Ludgamani, so you've got Walpri there, all the way up to the coast, coastal NT, where you've got Arnhem Land and Yolnu cultures up there. So it is a vast footprint and vastly different in the various patches, and that has its own challenges because you just can't treat one station and one area of police service delivery the exact same as another. It has to be really fit for purpose. But I'm lucky, policing's a team sport, and I've got a really good team across that patch. Like I've got 3 superintendents, so they're my direct reports. One is based in Catherine, one's up in Nhulunbuy that looks after that coastal NT area, and the other one's Catherine looks after the middle remote. So they're great value. They do a good job. And then, of course, officers in charge at all the stations, like Schultz was when he was out doing remote stuff, and then obviously the constable team across there. So they punch well above their weight. They work really hard for the community and to deal with everything that comes through the door. So I'm really lucky with the team I've got. But it is exhausting because it is relentless. It's a massive amount of domestic violence. Obviously, alcohol driven offending continues to be an issue for us across the board. So we're constantly trying to work with the community and different ways to address those things. So yeah, it's a busy job, but I love it. I genuinely love where I am and what I do. And yeah, I'm not looking at going anywhere anytime soon. Maybe next year I'll ask for a chop out and try and find a cruisy commander's job somewhere nice that doesn't have 20 odd stations and 230 members and a whole lot of community issues. I don't know where that commander's job is yet. I haven't found it, but I'm on the hunt.
I think cruisy jobs stop at about senior constable.
Yeah.
I don't know if there is a cruisy job in the police force up here anymore, but
I don't think
if there is,
at all.
can someone let me know? I'm keen.
Yeah, no, definitely.
Yeah. Kylie, there's actually we've got a number of followers, female followers that are quite excited about you coming on here. Because obviously, as we pointed out, we're not female. But we've got one, and this is from a young lady. She's not in the police, but she's really excited about joining. And we can't mention her name because she's got some family that are in the police, and she just doesn't want to let them know that she's so excited about joining. I think they're trying to protect her a little bit. But she has a question for you when I said that we were getting you on there, and she said, could we ask you how you knew the job was for you, as in deciding factors and how you decided what it takes to do this job?
That's a really good question. And I'm an accidental police officer. When I finished high school, I was studying law and accounting at uni. And then I decided accounting was really boring. Sorry to all the accountants out there listening. So I stuck with the law part. But in the interim, I fell into a holiday job with police, working in accounts and finance. So it was the lowest level administration officer, just doing really menial labour, entering invoices into the computer system. But planets aligning, my boss used to drink at the police club every afternoon because he lived near headquarters, so he used to walk home. So he said, "Oh, you need to come up to the police club, Coles, because my mum used to pick me up from work, but she worked an hour longer." So I started going up to the police club, and of course, you then get the whole myriad of police officers up there. The Dave Swifts and the Bruce Sandries. There's Grumpy's Corner was in the old police club at headquarters, that sitting there telling their worries over from 30, 40 years of policing. And then you'd have a Casuarina shift crew knock off it, and they'd come up and they'd be telling stories about what they did. And eventually I realised I didn't want to be sitting staring at a computer all day, every day. This whole land of opportunity within policing opened up to me just accidentally. So I ultimately decided that's where I wanted to go. So got fit, hit up some taskies to give me a training program, which simply involved run. I said, you want to get fit, start running. It's the quickest way to get fit and prep for the job. And then they every week would throw me around the obstacle course. So we'd do the obstacle course to train for that, because that was one of the entry requirements. And 5 years after joining in admin, I joined the police. So I don't know if you'll ever know if you're suitable unless you give it a go. A lot of people say, I don't like confrontation. or conflict. And I go, well, we train you to deal with those things. So, and we don't like it either. We're trained to try and de-escalate conflict and confrontation. So, if you're thinking of it, it is a good career. I'd give it a go and see where you land. There's screening processes. So, if you are really clearly not suitable, those screening processes potentially will screen you out and suggest to you that it's probably not a career for you. But I haven't looked back. So, have a go is all I'll say.
Yeah, definitely. There was, I think there was a second part as well. Was there a second part to that? Where
No, that was basically it. It was just the two parts, and I think they just want to get from your point of view. Some I suppose some of the challenges you've had. Going through the police, and I know you mentioned it earlier. You had a pretty good ride, and you were changing the tire and all that sort of thing. But is there anything from the female perspective, or maybe what females bring to the job? Other than the male, pale and stale, I suppose.
I would never say that about you two. I think that's a bit harsh. There are distinct challenges in the job, and particularly, obviously, a lot of the community members that we deal with as police officers are Aboriginal, and in a lot of the remote communities, that's a patriarchal society. So the male is the primary leader of those communities. So when you turn up out in those remotes as a female, there are some intricacies in how you deal with that. And a prime example, there was an old elder out at Papunya, and he would come to the police station and want to register a car or, renew his shooter's license, things like that. And initially, he would refuse to deal with me. He would look past me and speak to the male sergeant or the male constable, and demand to be served and get whatever he needed done. Fortuitously for me, both those members would go, well, she's a police officer, and if you want something done today, you need to deal with her. So they basically set the ground rules early to go, we're all police officers here and we all deliver a service. So we're not playing that game, or we're not, it's not going to happen for you to actually be able to just deal with male members. So suck it up. And I'm sure this lovely old elder hated dealing with me really early on, but we just got on with it and made it work. So because I was really efficient at what I did. So he got what he needed to get done, and he'd get back out of the station and life would be good. So you had things like that. Things like so in Aboriginal communities, there is men's areas, so where they do ceremonial business, and as a female, it is an absolute no-go that females go in there. And we have to actually be mindful of that, because we have to actually work with the community and remember that there's a really important understandings and law to people. So every now and again, you would not realise potentially that you'd committed some offence. And so I remember there was a town meeting about me at Papunya for having travelled through a road that had been temporarily closed for men's business that I wasn't aware of. So there was absolutely no intent to do that. But there was a community meeting about me and what had happened. And ultimately it was all resolved with the fact that I was respected in the community and there was no offence meant. I wasn't aware that the road had been closed temporarily and things like that. But they're like the tricky things that you find operationally when you're out and about and doing a job as a female. Challenges internally, again, I just think if you let your reputation be its own street cred. So if you're a good member first and foremost, that gets you a long way in the job. And that applies equally to men as well. That is being around and accepting the extra duty and stuff, making sure that when you do a job, you do it to the best of your ability, not hiding. You know those crews that hide and pull a traffic apprehension when it's busy so they're not getting the really crap jobs. Don't be that person. Be the person that actually embraces being busy and being a team member and getting on with it to help the team out. And I just don't think you can go wrong as a female in the job in that respect. Having said that, if you do have issues and you're a female on the job, you should step up and you should say something, because, sexual assault, sexual harassment, all of those things, they do exist, and there is absolutely no room for them in any police force. So don't think you have to sit there and suck it up just to be a good police officer. That is not what I'm trying to say.
No, definitely. And that, I think, look, on the side, I went through not seeing any real difference in treatment between men and women. We're of a generation where that was kind of gone. It was, we were right at the beginning of the way it sort of is now. And I would even say I knew a few of the senior women who, when I joined, it was still that they'd gone through some tough times. Like I've heard some horror stories. One of the girls who I work with in Catherine, she started in Victoria in 1990, and she told a story. I won't repeat it because it's pretty rough. But basically, her first meeting with her inspector at the time, who was an old Vietnam veteran, was, do you perform sexual acts or do you make coffee, basically? And that was how she was treated day one. So we're certainly not going to say there weren't problems. There certainly were problems back in the day. Those problems, like that conduct now, would be just instant dismissal. Basically, there's no room for that. So I think the girls of our generation, and I get this conversation a lot where they said, "No, it's just a job." He said, "Yeah, you've got the unique challenges to do with anatomy, but apart from that, there was no drama." Some of the girls I found to be the best female coppers I worked with, they were feminine. They didn't try to be blokes either. They embraced themselves. They were just themselves. They acted how they needed to act. They didn't need to be the 6 foot tall, bulletproof fist fighter in the street, which is occasionally required in situations. They stepped forward when they had strength. They were fantastic at de-escalating things in City Safe. Come on, Dale, calm down. You need to go that way. It was just a big angry man who sees 3 coppers and goes, "I'll take you." All of a sudden, she could step in and just go, "Come on, Dale, you don't want to do this. You go that way, or we're going in the cage." And it just had that effect. It just brought it back a little bit. And I found that, the girls who worked to their strengths were really, really good. You don't need to be a macho man, woman to do it. You just need to use your brain and be yourself.
Yeah, and it's a good point because, I'm not going to go and wrestle a 6'2" angry bloke, but what I can do is rely on my communication skills to talk him down and get him to do what I want to do. And I rarely had to get into a wrestle in this job. I'd spend that extra 5 minutes actually just talking to people and trying to explain that this is only going to end one way, but it can end an easy way for both of us, or it can be quite difficult. So we do bring that to the party. It's funny how you say you can be feminine, because I think really early on in my career, I was one of the boys. Like I'm not a girly girl. I never have been and never claimed to be, but really early on, I was just one of the boys, and I really embraced that. And I think because I used to, and I still like a beer, as you two know, but my superpower was drinking, so I could drink most of my team under the table. And I think that held me in very good stead early on. So, but as you get older, I think you get more comfortable in your own skin. And it's nice to actually be who you are and realise it doesn't matter if you're a girly girl or a blokey girl or whatever, just be you. Because
so I think that's what I meant, is you don't have to try and put something on that you're not. You don't try and be something you're not. If you are a girly girl, you can be a girly girl and do this job. It's not the be who you are is what I meant. It's certainly not.
Absolutely agree. Because people will see the authentic you then, and they'll embrace that. So you don't have to put on any airs and graces. I mean, to fit into this job.
Yeah, I think like one of the things I try to do. It doesn't matter whether you're male, female, or even transgender, I suppose. But you all bring something of your personality into the job. You've all got your strengths, and I think the important thing is, to use those strengths. I remember back in Catherine, we had one female that wasn't overly confrontational. She used to, but she was extremely quick at typing statements and all that sort of thing. And so when she had like kind of volatile follow-ups she had to do, I would do them for her, but then she would type up the, all the reports and anything that I got. So we were just using each other's strengths, because I don't know about, I'm flat out typing 2 lines, really. Whereas they can whip up a statement in 30 seconds.
Mm.
So it's all about using your strengths to the best of your ability in the job, I think.
Yeah. That's that, true teamwork, where you identify in your team who's got what skills, and you make sure you rely on those as a collective team. So absolutely, like the one thing that as a junior female you would get a lot of is, and obviously our policies require that if possible, female search by female. So you would get rolled out a lot to go, "Hey, Ando, can you come and search this female and that female?" That was a bit of a drag, because you're like, you're in the middle of doing something, but you were like the specialist female searcher, but obviously required it. So that was one of the funny parts about it's roll out the random female to be able to deal with the females, the female whisperer.
Yeah, it was about I reckon it was about 10 times a shift. around Catherine and Alice especially, because there's quite often girls around the watch house, and it wasn't a major drama in Darwin, but elsewhere there mightn't be. And it was, oh yeah, can we get a female member here? Female member here. It was constant. And then, and like you say, it was always the same response. No, I'll be there in a minute. That was good. Yeah.
Go, other than that challenges wise, there's some funny stories. I remember I was working in Alice Springs. I'd moved down from Catherine. I was still in general duties, and I was working with a very blokey bloke member down there, and he was very polite. And every time, this is a bit crass, but it still makes me laugh to this day. Every time he needed to pass wind, he would make an excuse to get out of the car. He'd pull up and go, oh, it would be meaning to have a look what that sign says, and he'd get out. Anyway, you know that you're accepted as a female partner where your male partner's like, she's all right, we're going okay. The first time that he's driving in the car, doesn't make an excuse to stop and actually just passes wind in the car and throws an old, get that up, ya. Like, I have been embraced into the team now. And for me, I took that as a real positive. I know that's quite crass, but for me, I was like, he likes working with me. We're good here. This will be a good run.
Quite crass. Have you met us before?
I sort of meant for everyone else, not you two. I know you're doing abilities.
I can honestly say you do not want to be in the car when Damo does that.
No.
How did we just degenerate to talking about farting? This was always going to end up somewhere like this. Yes.
So, Kylie, I think, is there anything else you can think of you'd like to say? I mean, we've covered off your career and your role now and the women in policing role and all that sort of thing. What else? Anything else you can think of that you'd like to put out there to the podcast world?
Yeah, I was just thinking about what you said about what women need to do to be good in the job of that, and I think go back to be yourself. We train in recruit training. We train all those skills, the soft hand, self-defense type skills. The communication stuff. So don't think just because you're a female, potentially, small and small built. We take the range of people these days. So if you are thinking of a career in policing and you've always wanted to do it, sign up, put your hand up and see how you go, because it is a really good career. And you will, like you two, you will make friends for life that we caught up last week, us three, and it was like we had never left from the last time we saw each other, which was several years ago. It was like we'd seen each other yesterday. So they are the friends and the relationships that you take in this job, and they are the great joy of what this job brings to the party for everyone. So it's a career within a career, and I've never personally regretted it. So it's a good job, and I'm sure that the Commissioner of Police would be very sad if I didn't say NT Police are recruiting at the moment. So get on the net, Google NT Police careers, and have a look at the requirements to sign up, because it is a land of opportunity.
Yeah, no, definitely.
And I honestly put in there, and I did say it. I did say it to one of the recruits, because they are in the college at the moment, and they think about their postings and all that. And I actually said I would strongly advise that you go to Catherine, because you've got a bloody good commander down there. Kylie, you're very well respected, and you built that reputation. So
I genuinely appreciate that, and I always tell the recruits, just get out of Darwin. Catherine, Tennant Creek, Alice Springs, you have less support services at your disposal, so you learn a lot, and you are put under pressure really early on in your career, and it really does make for good police officers into the future, because you learn to rely on yourself and your partner, and really just talking to people to get the job done, rather than having to go to those high level force options and things like that. So, but Catherine is the place to be. I want to put that on the record, where we'll take all recruits that want a career in the police force, come to Catherine, where all the cool kids are.
Yeah,
that's a good plug. It's a good plug.
And we can vouch for that, because both of us went to Catherine straight off. So
holds a special place. But no, that's excellent. So no, if you're happy, we're really grateful that you came on board. I know, people can be scared. There's a bit of an old culture in the police force that, no, I'm not talking on the media. I'm not going to, we're not really media. We're a podcast, but it is media. And I think we're breaking down those barriers. It's good to get the information out. It's good to humanise and normalise the police force. And that was our goal with speaking to everyone up here, yourself and the others that we've spoken to. So we're very grateful. We're grateful to Deputy Commissioner Dole. I spoke to him, and we're going to have a chat to him as well. He was the one who said, "Yeah, look, I'm happy for it to happen." So he could have just said, "No, you're not talking to anybody," and that would have been the end of that. But he hasn't. He's trusted us. He's trusted us that we're not here to. There's no point, and it's not us. We're not here to besmirch. We've got no gain out of this. What we wanted to do was humanise it. A lot of people don't realise that people are in the police and that they're good people. These are excellent people. So I think that was our goal, and we're very grateful.
Yeah, and I sent you a message a while ago when I heard the original Women in Policing podcast you did to thank you for your very kind words. But what I said was, you two come from a very genuine place, and we know that you are doing this because you just want to put a human face on policing and clarify that we're all human and that we're out there doing a hard job, but we're ultimately we're human, and so people need to bear with us. And so I just wanted to thank you collectively on behalf of not only your colleagues in the NT Police, but I'm sure police in Australia and worldwide, that it's hitting the mark for all of us too to say, we know what you're trying to do and we genuinely appreciate what you're doing out there doing it.
No, very good. We appreciate it. And yeah, hopefully the people who aren't police too, getting back going, well, I had no idea. And I've had my old mate, there was a truckie in New South Wales who he reckons he's never really had much respect for police. And he goes, I listened to a couple and I found myself driving along in a log truck, bawling my eyes out. So there's a lot to it. And I think that's the idea. And if we can keep doing that, that'll be a good thing. So we do appreciate it. Chilsey,
Yep.
What do you got?
Yep. No, that's excellent, and thank you very much for coming on. I know there's a lot of even my partner, Miriam. She said it'd be nice to hear from some women in the police and all that sort of thing, and we're very, very lucky to get somebody like yourself with so much experience and 20 years. And so you've seen a lot of changes over the years as well, and now hold a very important rank and a very important job in the police. So, and it's really nice to see. So. Thank you very much. And when I actually stop recording, Kylie, stay on there. We'll have a bit of a chin wag afterwards. But
sure.
But yeah, thank you so much for coming on.
Yeah, definitely. So I think that'll do it, mate. That's Two Ordinary Cops, and we're done again.
Can I sign off? Because remember we said we were going to sign off with 2 ordinary cops and a very ordinary commander.
Oh, yes, of course.
That's right, yes.
Love your work, Kylie.
Talk to you next week.
See you later, everyone.